Perugia at Biomass Research Center as a researcher, and I worked with bioenergy topics, biofuels topics, and also several bioproducts obtained from biomass. So this is the reason I will talk you about these applications. These applications are green chemistry application, and so we will have a look to the transition between fossil fuel economy to a green economy. And this transition, in this transition, a great part, a great importance have bioenergy, which is probably the only one renewable energy that can substitute fossil fuels in every sector, from electricity to heat and cool energy production, to bioproducts that can substitute products from fossil fuels in the optic of biorefinery passage from traditional fossil fuel refinery. Okay, just to complete the list of participants, I will now call your names. Please confirm that you are present, and if you want to say 2 words about your activity, your PhD research activity, it's a pleasure for me to know. So I have signed Aaron Pazzaia.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay,
yeah.
If you want to say 2 words about you.
And my activity is about the waste management, and especially now I'm working with Giussino. Food waste management in particular, and by monitoring through BIS. And there are a lot of projects that we are approaching this time.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Simona Stocklin.
Good morning, I'm here. I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer, and I work for the municipality of Rome. And in Rome, we have many problems. For example, we have the problem of the waste problem. And also we want to improve the number, increase the number of the energy supplier for the electric cars. So I wonder if, for example, a solution with the biodigester that alimenting the plants that give electricity to the cars could be possible, for example. I still don't know my exact team of project of research for my PhD, and I'm deciding it in these days. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Simona. You just touched some interesting topics. For example, the possibility of obtain biomethane from anaerobic digestion of some wastes or some biomass residues. So the possibility to move from this feedstock to biogas, and then upgrading biomethane to use into cars or also into our houses. And another thing I would like to say is that some years ago, I think more than 10 years ago, we prepared a feasibility study for the municipality of Rome to collect all residues from parks and from roam trees and green areas to collect them and to transform it into energy. So it's a very interesting topics you suggested. Okay,
could we get in touch and talk about this offline, for example, or during the course, if possible?
I think that I can show you also some slides during the course. So
okay.
I think it's possible. Then we of course could talk about it also offline or out of the this course. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Simona. Roberta Giacobicchio.
Good morning, everyone. My research area is not so linked with this lesson. I'm working with urban microclimate and human comfort in the built environment, but I have a personal interest on bioenergy, so
okay, thank you. And I think also we can try to find some connection with your activity. Okay, thank you, Roberto. Then I have assigned Elena Ricciolini. Elena, are you here? Okay, probably it's now disconnected. Silvia Garlatti is here.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
My background is in agronomy and biotechnology is applied to environment. And I'm doing my PhD project is on biochar from olive milling waste and polyphenols recovery. So it's still not very connected with the discourse, but I think it's very interesting. So I'm here.
I think there are also many connections with this course because green chemistry application cover a very large area of project and pathways. So of course also biochar from olive milling is a possible energy pathway, and we will also have a look to thermochemical processes and of course biomass residues from olive is a very important sector to collect sustainable biomass. Okay, thank you, Silvia. And anyone else is present to the course?
Yes, sorry, I am here because I have a problem with my my internet connection.
Okay. If you want to say two words about your PhD activities.
Yes, of course. I study at the Department of Agricultural, so my thesis is kind of different. It's about the sustainable development and deals with the sustainability assessment through multi-criteria analysis. And in particular, I want to analyze the state of the country of the European Union, which refers the 2030 agenda and the sustainable development goals.
Okay, thank you. It's the first topic we will talk about this morning. So the scenario about energy and bioenergy in Europe and in Italy. So it's a very interesting activity because you will transform this information into sustainability analysis, and so you will touch topics like life cycle assessment or carbon footprint, water footprint. Okay, thank you, Silvia.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Elena. And anyone else?
Yes, I'm Francesco Spaccini. And sorry, I forgot to sign in this course, but I would participate because I'm really interested in the green chemistry application for bioenergy, because my background is an agronomic one, like Silvia and Elena. And my final thesis was about production of biogas from microalgae. So I think it's an interesting application, and I want to follow this kind of research also in my PhD.
Okay. Thank you, Francesco.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes, I also forgot to sign me at the course, sorry. I'm Giacomo Fabrizi, and during my PhD I would like to study about the application of lignin nanoparticles on biosorption application. So it's a sort of environmental application of bioproducts. And my background, I'm in industrial biotechnology. I worked for a company for 3 years on microalgae and fermentation.
Okay, thank you, Giacomo. Anyone else? I read also Said. Now I can see the chat and the participant, but before I saw Said is here. No.
Hi, good morning. I am Said Bouzid.
Hi, Said.
Yes, how are you? Hi, good morning, you.
Yes,
I am Said Bouzid. My work is development of biomaterial based on the plaster and fibers for thermal and acoustic solution.
Okay, I've lost some words, but I understood your main activities. Okay, so
thank you.
Thank you too. Okay, so welcome again. Just a look to the schedule of the course. We will have a short introduction to the energy scenario in EU and in Italy, in particular, of course, considering renewable energy, and between renewable energies, bioenergy. We will have a focus on this section of renewable energy. Then we will have a look to what is biomass. So what are the possible sources, and we will also try to define what is the sustainability concept in biomass, so the definition, classification, and typologies. We will touch the chemical physical properties of biomass, which are necessary to have a collocation of every biomass for the following energy conversion process. And then we will deepen the bioenergy processes, thermochemical, biochemical, mechanics processes. And then these processes will be applied to some bioenergy plant examples, but we will speak not only about energy in a strict conception, but we'll enlarge the bioenergy concept to biofuels, first and second generation biofuels, and so bioethanol, biodiesel, biomethane. We introduced this biofuel, and also some other possible biofuels. And finally, we will touch also the biorefinery concept that consider biomass as a feedstock for the new concept of refinery, and so we can obtain a lot of bioproducts from biomass, from bioplastics, from for example natural dyes, lignin, nanocrystalline cellulose, and so on. Before introduce the first slides, just to communicate the lessons. We planned 4 lessons. Today the first, then the next Wednesday, and so on. So for 4 Wednesday we will have these lessons. The first 3 lessons will be online with this platform. The last one lesson will be on our laboratories. So we will not have the possibility to have an online meeting. So the idea is to see us physically, see us into our laboratories, to have this final lesson in directly into the labs. So I don't know if everyone could attend this last lesson, but of course I will also give you some information about our laboratories during the first 3 lessons. So if you can't attend the last lesson in presence, I think you will have also material to study this part of the course. Okay, so please let me know if everyone can attend the last lesson in our laboratories of Biomass Research Center. Otherwise, of course, I will give you some material during this lesson. Okay. Okay. So just to see from what we start in this course. I don't need to say you what kind of renewables are available, because I think you know this information from a lot of years. But this picture allow me to show you how we can move from a fossil fuel economy to a green economy. So we have to substitute all fossil resources with green sources. And there is not an ideal mix of renewable sources to be used in every situation, in every country. But of course, every renewable energy must help to this green revolution. Just to use some actual terms we listen every day. And of course, this change, this green revolution must interest every sector of human activity. So, of course, energy consumption, electricity, heat, cool, steam, a lot of energy products are available to a lot of activities, because we need this energy for our houses, our industry, our commercial activities, also, of course, also for our transports. And so the sustainable mobility is another fundamental sector we have to invest to reach the green revolution. And this means, of course, biofuels in substitution of fossil fuels, biodiesel, bioethanol, biomethane, but also the new frontiers of sustainable transports. And so, of course, electricity, electric car, fed by, of course, renewable electricity, and also hydrogen. Hydrogen is becoming a potential vector, and of course, we can't speak about hydrogen from fossil fuels, the gray hydrogen. We must speak about green hydrogen. So hydrogen obtained from renewable energy or from biomass, because there is also a possibility to transform biomass through biological processes into biohydrogen. So a lot of information we can read in these pictures. This is the European targets, the quite new European targets to 2030. For some years we talked about 2020 goals, 2020 objectives. Now we are of course oriented to 2030 objectives and also 2050 objectives. Okay, so you can see the target we must reach as a European Union, and also for our country, Italy. For example, renewable energies in final consumption, we must reach 32% in UE and 30% in Italy. Okay, and now we will have a look where we are now, actually. Of course, these final consumption are distributed into, for example, final consumption in transport, and we have to reach for 14% in UE and 22% in Italy, and also in heating and cooling in our houses or factories or commercial areas. And the yearly increase is 1.3% every year from now to 2030. We have also to respect the energy efficiency in buildings, and so we have to reduce energy needs for our buildings up to 32% in UE and 43% in Italy, compared to a scenario primes 2007, which is a scenario that evaluated a picture of energy consumption. And also greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and we must reduce GHG up to 43% in Europe and 33% in Italy. So very binding goal targets to 2030. Of course, you can stop me every time to make questions. I'm very happy to have a breath during your questions. So please stop me every time you have a question to, or also a regret, an observation to every part of the lesson. This is a table that shows the past. You can see we have data from 2005 and the future. And just to underline an important aspect, you can see every renewable energy, the contribution in Europe in the past, and also some estimation for the future. Okay, you can see that every past and future estimation, in every of these estimation, bioenergy is approximately 50% of total renewable energy sources. What does it mean? That we usually, when we talk about renewable energy, we usually talk about wind, photovoltaic systems, hydroelectric system. It's not so frequent to speak about bioenergy, but you can see that every estimation consider that bioenergy will be 50% of total renewable energy needs. And why this weight for bioenergy? There is a simple answer to this, but bioenergy, as I said a few minutes before, is the only renewable energy that can contribute to every sector of human energy needs. Photovoltaic, wind energy can only produce electricity. Of course, electricity could be used for transport sector, for instance, okay, but you have only the possibility to produce electricity. Geothermal energy it is a very little energy, but can contribute only for electricity and heat production, like solar thermal energy. Bioenergy can contribute in many sectors, as I said before, for electricity production, heat and cool production, biofuels production, bioplastic, bioproducts. So a lot of sectors are touched from bioenergy. And this is the reason we will, of course, get a particular look to bioenergy projects and research activities. This is an overlook of European energy consumption. You can see the unit we use for very large amounts of energy. We are talking about European energy needs or Italian energy needs. So we can't use joule or kilowatt hour or megawatt hour because are too little to have a number we can read. We use tons equivalent oil or mega TOE or tons oil equivalent. And you can see, so for the last years, the last data I have available are for 2019. I don't have find any most recent data, and you can see where we are in 2019. So approximately 19% of global European energy consumption come from renewable energy. So we are at 19%. Probably, actually, we reached 20-21% if the progress is linear, and we have to reach 30%, maybe something more in 2030. Here you can see the the distribution of renewable energy into the three main sectors: electricity. So we have the global energy consumption in some countries, and of course in all European. Just a note, actually we are not more 28 countries in Europe, because we lost the Great Britain. So actually we have 27 countries. This United Kingdom is not more in UE. But in 2019 we still were 28 countries, so you can see the 19% global energy, renewable energy, and also the situation in some in the main countries in Europe. In Italy, we are very close to the average data of Europe, but it's very interesting to note the penetration of renewable energy into the different sectors. Of course, electricity is the easier sector to substitute with renewable energy, and you can see that the percentage are very high. We just have 34% of electricity in Europe covered from FER. And also in Italy, we have 35% of electricity produced by renewable energies. Lower is the situation for thermal sector, where we are approximately to 20% of total energy consumption for thermal sector, and very difficult to enter into the transport sector, where we are lower than 10% in every country, and also in the whole UE. We are approximately at 9%, and this is the difficulty I have talked about before. In the transport sector, of course, we are starting to introduce electric cars, and of course electric cars will be fed by a lot of renewable energies, okay? But actually we have a lot, the large part of transport sector fed by fossil fuels, and we can only substitute with biofuels, and so 5, 6, 7% of diesel and gasoline are covered by biofuels. It's only a very low part, so this is an important sector we have to invest also in research and development to increase the percentage of renewable energy. Here are some other data about the use of energy products in every country, and I'm thinking about the political and situation in these last days, and I think you have read a lot of graphics talking about war in Ukraine, and the secondary problem, but not so secondary for our country, of energy use. We still have a great dependence on fossil fuels, from gas, and a lot of gas comes from Russia and also Ukraine. And yes, you can have a look to this situation in every country in Europe, and of course our situation is one of the most critical regarding the fossil fuels needs and also the foreign needs, because the great part of oil, fossil fuels and gas are imported from other countries. So another reason we have to move towards green energy production. Other information regarding the mix of the different energies, renewable energies, and just to underline again that yes, we don't talk about bioenergy, but in every country you can see that bioenergy are the largest fraction of renewable energies. 53% of bioenergies. Also, this 5% is electric bioenergy. So you can see a lot of bioenergy is in every country, and the same in Italy. We have 35% of thermal bioenergy and 8% of electric bioenergy, and also biofuels, sustainable biofuels. So a lot of elements that are produced from biomass. The distribution of the sectors, 32%, we just read this data, 32% of renewable energy is used for electric sector, 39% in the thermal sector, and only 9% in the transport sector. Other information regarding the consumption in these three sectors in every country. Not any other observation to this graph. This is interesting because you can see the target, because these data are from 2019. So the 1 year before the first deadline of 2020 objectives. And you can see where we were in 2019, and the blue line was the target at 2020. So for example, for Italy, you can see that we just reached our 2020 target in 2019, because our target was approximately 18%, and we are very close to 19%. So we have reached our target. And so for some other regions, but for example, some regions, mainly some little regions, but not only, didn't reach this target and are far away from reaching this target. For example, France didn't reach the target, and it's very, very far away from its target, which was very high, because the target, France target was 24%. It's very, very far away, and the same for some other regions: Poland, UK, Belgium, and so on. So this is the picture of 2020 objectives. A lot of regions and countries reached the target for electricity in the renewable sector, and also Italy, which is approximately 35%. So you can see that many countries have more renewable electricity production than the target at 2020. Other information about the trend of growth about some renewable energies. You can see that, and this is another important consideration. Some renewable sources are just being used for the maximum power. For example, hydroelectricity is the same in the last 15 years. So we have just used the sites that were useful for hydroelectric production. We can only move towards mini or micro hydro production, but it's not important to European or country level. Bioenergy is increasing with constant value, and you can also see the important jump that we have in the electricity sector for solar energy, which didn't exist before 2005, and now has a very, very important market for electricity production. And also the wind energy have a great growth during these years. The thermal sector is another important sector, and I just want to show you only these graphs. These two graphs, where you can see the importance of bioenergy. So the very, very large thermal sector market for renewable energy, of course, is covered by bioenergy. And of course, electricity or geothermal, solar are a very low part of this distribution. And you can see that, yes, some heat pumps are introduced during the years, but bioenergy and other, the blue part is other bioenergies, so not solid. So we can speak about biogas, biomethane, or some liquid biofuels, but not so used into the thermal sector. And finally, for EU picture, the transport sector, which is the less sector for bioenergy and in general renewable energy introduction. You can see the several countries they contribute of renewable energy into transport sector. Only Sweden and some other Nordic countries have a very large use of renewable energy in transport. Then the main countries are approximately at 9–8%. And also in this sector, the importance of bioenergy. And you can see that bioenergy, single counting, double counting, it is a particular way of count the bioenergy contribute depending on the sustainability of biomass. So if the biomass is sustainable, so is residues produced inside the European Union, it's the count is doubled. Otherwise, we have a single count, and you can see that the most important percentage is covered from biofuels. Only a little part is covered from renewable electricity in transport sector for hybrid or electric cars. Okay, now we can have a look to Italian sector, and you can see the global energy consumption in Italy. This is this line. Okay, so this is the global energy consumption from 2005 to 2019, and you can see a short diminution of the consumption due to some global industrial problems, because we lost a lot of industry systems, but it's not only a negative problem, because a part of this decrease is due to also the improvement of energy efficiency in buildings. So there is a double consideration about this decrease of global energy consumption. And here, you can see the increase of renewable energy in every sector. Okay, the yellow one is transport, and we know the problems to reach this sector, and the increase into electricity and also thermal sector. So actually, we have 22 mega compared to 120 mega TEP of global energy consumption. And this is the trend of each renewable source in the electric sector. Okay, so we are having a zoom to electric sector, and the black line shows the increase of global renewable electricity in Italy, and the other lines are the situation of every source. So you can see the hydroelectric energy, which is constant during this year. The geothermal electricity is the same. The geothermal plants were built more than 20 years ago, and so we just have used all the useful sites. And you can see also the large growth of photovoltaic energy, and also the important growth of wind energy, and the lower increase of bioenergy. These are the main energy source used for electricity production in Italy. This information is in considering the power, the installed power. Okay, this is the energy used. So we are speaking about megawatt hour, and this consumption depends on a lot of factors. For example, you can see that hydroelectricity depends on rainfall in that year. So we have a large variation of energy production from hydroelectric systems depending on rainfall during that year, and this influences all the global production. Sorry. Okay, and this is the renewable electricity percentage produced, and you can see that we are very close to 40% of electricity. 40% of electricity is renewable, and this is an important result for result for Italy. This is another important graph that allow me to introduce another important information when we talk about renewable energies in general, and of course we will focus on bioenergy. The renewable energy plants are divided in two categories. Programmable sources and not programmable sources. What does it mean? If you have photovoltaic energy, you can preview what will be the yearly production from every plant, and this preview is very close to the real production, but you can't know if today will be cloudy or will be sunny or will be rain, and so you can't program the production from photovoltaic. So photovoltaic energy is a not programmable source, the same as wind energy, because you can't know if today will be windy or the wind will stop, and so you can't preview this production. On the other hand, geothermal energy, bioenergies are programmable sources, and so this is the reason you see that in a year you have, for example, for geothermal energy, a very high number of productive hours, 7,500. A year have 1 year has 8,700 approximately hours. So you can quite ever produce energy from geothermal plant. You can decide how and when you produce energy from bioenergy plant. You can't program wind, solar, and also in part hydro power energy. Hydroelectric is borderline because it depends on the technology you use, on the how many water you can store into a basin, so it's borderline. But the important difference is between programmable and not programmable sources, and it's a very important information you must know to work on the energy production and energy scenario from European to local energy needs. Some other characteristics of renewable plants. You can see that's also another important difference between the renewable sources is the size of the plant, and so there are huge differences between sources. You can see that, for example, photovoltaic systems, the 95% of photovoltaic systems are lower than 50 kilowatt. Okay, you can see in this part of the slide. The opposite for hydro systems, where the large part are more than 50 kilowatt, and the most important part is from 200 kilowatt to 1 megawatt. Also the aeolic systems, where the large part is very large plants from 50 to 200 kilowatts, and so on. Geothermal is geothermal plants are only big plants. You can see this level is more than 10 megawatt. Okay, so every source has its characteristics and its average size. Also bioenergies, you can see that solid bioenergy plants, biogas plants or bioliquid plants are whole into the size between 200 kilowatts and 1 megawatts, and it depends also on incentives they receive for electricity production for bioenergy. So another important element we introduced to this topic. I go very quickly. We are concentrating to regional renewable energy characteristics, but I repeat, I go very quickly in this part. You will have available this PowerPoint to deepen if you are interested at the particular production of one region. Just to note the photovoltaic progress in the last years, and just to note that in 2008 we have only 30,000 photovoltaic plants, and now we are very close to 1 million photovoltaic plants in Italy. Okay, it's a very large growth, both in numbers and in power, installed power. Okay, so we have 200 times of evolution of power into 10 years, 11 years. And you can say also the distribution of photovoltaic systems in Italy. It's not so current with the sun availability, because probably we should have to see that a lot of plants are in the south of Italy, where we have more availability of sun, but it depends on many factors that we can consider politically, in industry reasons. So it's not only depending on the sun availability in the regions. Aeolic systems, and this also had a great increase in the last 15 years. Only 150 plants were available in 2005, and actually we have more than 5,000 plants. Very large increase of aeolic systems. Also in power, you can see in this line. Here the production, and you can see the production depends also on the wind availability. Okay, so in this year probably we don't lost wind plants, but we had less wind during this year, probably because the trend is a constant increase. Here you can see the number of hours of use in each plant, and of course it depends on the site you realize the wind plant, but of course so you can have an average value lower than 2,000 hours per year of use. Hydroelectric trend, you can see that the installed power is very constant in the last years, just a very little increase. Here we can have an interesting information. We have a very low increase of installed power, but we doubled the hydro plants in the last 15 years. So the installed power increased very low, but we doubled the number of plants. What does it mean? Of course, it means that we have built a lot of mini and micro plants. that are very, very good for local integration, for the sustainability of this plant, but of course don't move the global hydroelectric balance in Italy. So they are very important for the realization of distributed plants, because these plants are very small and are very integrated in the territory, but of course they don't have the possibility of increase the global renewable energy production for the Italy country. And of course, the concentration of hydroelectric is in the north of Italy, where we have a lot of mountain we can use for like the creation of basins, artificial lakes. And this is the variation due to the rainfall every year that we have. Of course, I can say that 2014 was a very rainy year, while 2017 was a very sick year regarding rains. Geothermal, of course, we have 34 plants in Italy, and these 34 plants are realized from a lot of years. You can see here sometimes 31, 32, it depends on also the maintenance of some plants that sometimes don't work. And so you can see here where these 34 plants are located in the center, south of Tuscany. And so where we could extract heat in economic way, we just have built the plants. So we don't have the possibility. We have the possibility just considering the low enthalpy geothermal plant, but it regards the thermal production for buildings, and so it's not in this overview. Okay, biomass. Biomass plants are 4,000 in 2019, 4,000 plants, and you can see the number of plants and the installed power from biomass. In the next lessons, and of course in this lesson we will start to speak about what biomass is and what differences are between biomass and wastes. And so of course we have to introduce these differences also now that we are having a look to biomass production, because otherwise you can't appreciate the graphs. You can see also biologic wastes or biodegradable wastes. This concept is the only compenetration between biomass and wastes. So the Italian law and also the European law, because a lot of local laws are derived from European legislation. So the law define biomass and define wastes, and are two separate elements, and follows two separate laws. The only waste that can be considered a biomass is the organic fraction. Okay, so biodegradable wastes are organic fraction. So only organic fraction from buildings is considered a biomass, and so it's the reason you can see here this kind of waste. Okay. And you can see the total energy production from biomass in black line, and the implementation of different biomass systems. The pink one, I think it's something like pink color, is biogas. The violet is bioliquids. The orange or the brown is the other biomass. So solid biomass in general, solid biomass, wood, chips, pellet, char, biochar, okay, and the green one is the organic fraction. Distribution in the regions, Lombardy and Lombardy as the main production from biomass, the distribution of each region. Just to observe that the north of Italy has the large concentration of solid biomass, but also Calabria and Puglia have a great production of energy from solid biomass. In gray, the organic fraction, and you just saw that these two regions are the main. Also, Campania has the main production of energy from organic fraction, biogas mainly in the north of Italy, and bioliquids. And here you can see the main production is in Emilia-Romagna, Puglia, Campania, also Sardinia. It depends mainly on the possibility to have access to ports, because a lot of bioliquids are imported from other countries, European countries, but also extra-European countries. And so the region that have access to the sea are the most energy producer from bioliquids. Bioliquids has a particular situation, because you can see some not so sustainable biomass. Palm oil comes from Indonesia, Malaysia, and so if you have to transport palm oil from these countries to Italy across 5,000 kilometers or more by sea, by train, by trucks, and so on. Yes, the sustainability of this bioliquid is very, very low. So there are important considerations regarding mainly palm oil, which is extra EU imported. And yes, you can see the biofuels in Italy coming from some countries, and you can see that, of course, palm oil is imported. 98% is imported from Indonesia and Malaysia. Okay, so and this is the most important fraction of global bioliquids consumption in Italy for electricity production. You can see that 75% of oil is palm oil from these two countries. So this sector created and creates some environmental problems, and this is the reason that EU introduced some sustainability concept regarding biomass in general and vegetable oil, and so they introduced the sustainability of European oil, so oil produced in European compared to unsustainable vegetable oil produced from extra EU countries. And yes, another graph that shows this dependence from, of course, these two countries to produce oil, and of course some other kind of oil like soybean, sunflower, and other oils are produced in Italy or in other European region. And it creates another problem. So I also would like to show you also what are the problems related to biomass and bioenergy and bioproducts production. So the biofuels, the liquid biofuels created and create a lot of environmental questions or problems. I just say to you the problem of importation from far away of these bioliquids. Another problem is that, okay, we don't import bioliquid from Malaysia or Indonesia. We can produce this bioliquid in Italy or in EU, but this produce a second and very important problem, the competition with food crops. And so why we have to cultivate sunflower to produce energy? Does it produce a change to the market, a problem to the price of this food feedstock? And so we can talk a lot of time introducing and discussing about this problem, and of course these are problems. And so this is the reason because my lessons will be oriented to sustainable biomass which don't go in competition with food crops, food agriculture, but in some situation this biomass can cooperate with traditional agriculture using residues from food agriculture to produce energy and bioproducts. So I ask you if someone of you would like to make some considerations about this information and this problematic I introduced. If you have something to say, you are welcome. I don't know. I can continue with this overview of bioliquids, other information about how these vegetable oil are used, so in what kind of plants. And you can see that another problem, because it's a problem, is that these bioliquids are used in very, very big plants, more than 5 megawatt. And so it is another problem for some point of view, because you have a very big plants that produce locally some environmental problems, some emissions in atmospheres, some logistic problems due to the transportation of this biomass to the plant. So a lot of problem that a big plant causes in the local place where it is built. And this is the final slide regarding the energy overview, the energy scenario regarding energy and renewable energy consumption. You can see here the electric balance in 2019, electric balance, and on the left you can see the production, the production source of energy, in this case is electricity, and on the right side you can see the final energy, electricity consumption. And so you can see that this is the renewable fraction of electricity produced from hydro systems, bioenergy systems, and here you can also see the distribution of solid biogas and bioliquids sources, geothermal, wind, and solar energy. And so you can see that probably hydro electricity is a very important part of electricity production, but then you can see that approximately bioenergies, wind and solar are very close sources that produce similar energy quantities. And on the lower part, you can see the fossil fuel production, and you can see that we are still using carbon sources. We use a lot of methane, a lot of natural gas, and also some other fossil fuels. We also import because we don't have nuclear energy, but we have a large import of electricity, close to 12%, and a great part of this nuclear import is from nuclear energy. So we don't have nuclear plants in Italy, but we import an important fraction of energy from nuclear plants that are also very close to our neighbor. We have a lot of nuclear plants very, very close to our neighbor in the north of Italy. And then you can see how this electricity production is used in the several sectors. And of course, the industry sector is the most important electricity consumption sector. Of course, the tertiary sector, so commercial, schools, public lighting, and so on. Then our buildings that use 20% of global electricity production, and a small amount also for agricultural needs. Okay, and this is the final slide. We show how is the mix of electricity. This is only electricity, and so these days we speak about stop the importation of Russian gas, for example, or Russian oil. It's very, very long route to move from a source to another source. It's a very, very long. I just yesterday, I saw that we need approximately 2 years to move from Russian gas to other sources, gas from other countries or renewable. So it's very difficult to move from from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy or to other sources energy. So it's very actual to speak about these topics, because in the last days the energy theme is very actual, and it's a sort of secondary effect of the war we are seeing in the last 2 weeks in Ukraine, and so it's a very actual argument. Just to complete the overview, I have other 2 or 3 slides that show the situation in the thermal, in the transport sector. So this was the electricity production balance in Italy, and this is the thermal balance, the thermal energy balance in Italy, and you can see how the renewable energies are working in the thermal sector, and of course the solid biomass, and solid biomass means mainly wood for our biomass systems in our houses, or pellet for our stove, or briquette, for example, or wood chips. We have also an important energy from heat pumps, and these heat pumps are can be fed by electricity, of course, and remember that a large part of electricity is produced from renewable energy, but we can also fed heat pump with geothermal, with biomass, with solar, thermal solar. So we have also a direct possibility to fed these heat pumps, and then short percentage for geothermal, solar, or organic fraction of wastes. So yes, you can see the information just told you. So wood is the great part of bioenergy for thermal sector, and wood, and a part of pellet. You can see how the renewable energy is present in the final users, and of course industry is not so large user of renewable energy. Of course, we have a use in the residential sector, so our buildings, and in part on tertiary sectors, and unfortunately a large part of renewable energy are losses, because we have a lot of losses during this heat thermal transportation. Of course, the same thing for solar energy, which is used mainly in the building sector, and geothermal is a particular cases. You can see that half of the uses are thermal uses. So, for example, thermal plants we use for some hotels or some other commercial sectors. And this is the situation of transport sector. You can see the last data I found is from 2017, so unfortunately 5 years ago, and you can know that in 5 years there are a lot of changes, but it's the last available distribution of sources in transport sector, and you can see that, of course, the composition of fossil fuels sources. Diesel is the most important fossil fuel system for our cars or trucks and other transport systems. Gasoline is lower. We have also the system for the fuel for aviation, GPL for our cars and other products. Then you can see methane for methane cars and biofuels, and you can see the biodiesel is the most used renewable source. Very low the bioethanol. There is also a problem of energy content. Bioethanol has a very low heating value and compared to gasoline, and so there are also problem of this system. Sorry, just a moment. I could lose energy. You are speaking about the energy, so I was saving my energy, and electricity from renewable biomass, but in 2017 was too early to speak about hybrid or electric cars, so we have very low percentage of electricity use. Actually, we just have a lot of hybrid cars or full electric cars, so the numbers should change in this year, and electricity and mainly renewable electricity should increase in a very quickly way in the last years and in the next years. So another table that shows the percentage of every source in transport sector, and you can see that 92% is still from fossil fuels, and more than 50% is diesel for diesel engines, 20% is gasoline, and yes, shorter percentage for the other fossil fuels, and methane is only 3% of the transport sector, and biofuels is 3% biofuels and another 2.5% from electricity. So this is the picture of the percentage of every product for transport sector in Italy. And here are some other quantities of fuels and mainly biofuels consumed every year. So we have 1.4 million tons of biodiesel and a very low quantity of bioethanol and bio-HTBE. This is an additive to the fuels, so it's a bio additive that can be used into the fuels. So this is bioethanol, or that substitute gasoline, and biomethane, which is starting to substitute methane from 2019. So we have a law that was introduced between 2017 and 2016 that introduced the use of biomethane into transport sector, and so after two very low biomethane production years, in this year we have started to produce some quantity of biomethane, and I think that this trend is increasing in 2020, 2021, and in the next years. Okay. So, do you have any question about this first part? I was just showing you this very simple picture just to introduce this information. We will talk about biomass like a carbon dioxide neutral source. What does it mean? Because it's very important to fix this information. Biomass is carbon dioxide neutral because the carbon dioxide produced during every bioenergy process, because every bioenergy process produces CO2, carbon dioxide, is the same CO2 that the plants used during its growth. Okay, this is a very important concept. So to be carbon dioxide neutral does not mean that we don't produce CO2 during the process, but we consider that the produced CO2 is the same that the plant used, fixed during its growth. Okay, so this is this picture is only to clarify this aspect, which is fundamental. And here you can see the chemical reaction between energy from sun, water, or in liquid or gas form, and CO2 that through the photosynthesis produce, grow biomass, producing sugars and complex sugars like cellulose or hemicellulose or lignin, that are a very long chain or structure made of sugars. Okay, and the main sugar is glucose, which you can see here in a chemical formula. Okay, so this is the balance during the reaction during the growth of biomass. And here you can see after the chemical formula of glucose, and then of course this glucose create chains to more complex polymers like cellulose, which is the most polymer in the biggest polymer in nature. Okay. After this, of course, you can see that some energy information about the availability of energy stored during this photosynthesis reaction. This is the first element. Of course, when we talk about CO2, of course, we talk about greenhouse gas. So CO2 in atmosphere create a barrier to the possibility of some heat to exit from the atmosphere during the balance of the Earth, and the effect of this concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is the global increase of average temperature in the world, and it then means the highs that enlarge the height of the seas, the climate changes, the desertification of a lot of areas, and so on. Of course, and this is a general concept. Okay, biomass is a renewable source if we use it with the same availability of biomass growth. Okay, I don't know if is clear this concept. Destroy the South American forestries is a not sustainable, not renewable way to use biomass. We not should, but we have to respect the growth cycle of biomass. Only in this way we can consider biomass renewable. Okay, this is very important because this is in general the difference between fossil fuels and renewable source. In a very large way of view, we could consider also fossil fuels renewable energies, because if we use oil or methane in a very sustainable way, and it means that we use only a very little part of fossil fuel used for energy purposes, and we can consider unlimited also fossil fuel resources. With the actual resource consumption, we have fossil fuel for other 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years, but that the fossil fuels needed a million years to forms, and we have to wait. If you want, you can wait 1 million, 10 million years before you have available again fossil fuel. So this is the another fundamental concept that allow us to speak about renewable, sustainable source. We have to use it with the same tax, with the same speed of growth. Okay. Of course, it's not applicable to sun, to photovoltaic, or to wind energy, because the energy from sun will be available until sun is working. Wind energy, we use only a ridiculous fraction of wind into our aeolic systems. So this is not a concept applicable to these renewable sources. So we have the possibility to consider ever renewable photovoltaic or aeolic, or also hydroelectric energy. The different is the case in biomass. We can have renewable energy from biomass, but we can also have not renewable energy for biomass, and this is the difference, the important difference. And then, of course, another very elementary picture that shows that the CO2 the biomass use fixed during its growth is the same that we produce during the bioenergy process. This is the very simple way to show a bioenergy process. Every kind of bioenergy process. We will speak about a lot of thermochemical, biological, mechanical processes, but the concept is the same. We produce, in every process, we produce CO2. Okay, and this is the reason of neutrality, CO2 neutrality of biomass. And of course, this is the very simple way to see the greenhouse gases effect in our atmosphere. We have an energy balance, a global energy balance that is obtained from energy from sun that reach our planet. Some is reflected, some is absorbed, some is absorbed from the earth, some energy is reflected. And the problem of climate changes is here. If we increase the quantity of greenhouse gases in atmosphere, we increase the quantity of reflected energy that is reflected again and remains inside the atmosphere, and less energy goes through the atmospheres and goes into the space. Okay, so this is the part where the greenhouse gases create the well-known problems of increase of average temperature in our planet. Okay, this is the increase of this energy, which is reflected and so remains inside the atmosphere, and the effect is the increase of average temperature, and it's the famous 1 degrees, 2 degrees centigrades of average temperature increase. That is the most important point of not return. Okay, if we reach 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees of average temperature increase, we can't come back. Okay, so it means that the process is not more controllable. We will have climate changes, desertification, increase of climate problems, the level of the sea that increase. So a lot of extinction of animals, plants, problems for a lot of population. So everything you should know about the greenhouse gas effects and climate changes. Okay, so this is the problem, and of course, use biomass in a sustainable way is a way to don't increase the CO2 in atmosphere. If, of course, you use the biomass with the same growth rate. Okay. Of course, if you have any question also regarding this connection between biomass, bioenergy, green chemistry, because green chemistry, this is green chemistry. So biomass that in bioenergy production that cooperate to try to reduce the greenhouse gases presence in atmosphere. If you don't have any question, we can move to the biomass definition. And this is another theme, another argument that create a lot of also problems, because there is not a unique definition of biomass. We can start from an important law, very far away in the past, because it's quite 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, this law introduced a clear definition of biomass following an European directive. So I said before, I said previously that a great part of Italian law follows European directives. So a lot of this definition are applicable also in other countries, because it follows this European definition. So this first definition introduced biomass, which is the biodegradable part of products, wastes and residues. So wastes is considered like not wastes in general, but wastes from agriculture. Okay, so it's the better way to define these products. These products is residues from agriculture. Then we will have a very quick look to the possibility, the huge possibility of biomass from agriculture. Forestry, of course, we can obtain residues from forestry maintenance. So not destroy forestry, but have a maintenance of forestry, and connected industries. So agro industries, wine, olive oil, sugar, fruits, juice, and a lot of products from agro industries. So residues from these agro industries, and also residues from agroforestry, so for wood industry that produces a lot of residues. And this is another part I've just introduced to you, and the organic fraction of wastes. This is the only connection with waste sector. Okay. Another law that had a lot of modifies during these 10 years, 11 years. This is the decree, which is another law that follows the European directive for renewable energy promotion, and so this law modified in a small part this definition, and so you can see that biomass is the biodegradable fraction of product waste and residues with the biologic origin. This is a new element with biologic origin from agriculture, forestry, and connected industries, fishing. So there are new sector evidenced in this definition. So fishing, okay, and fish crops, residues and prunings from public and private park and gardens. Okay, this is another important introduction in this definition. And then the biodegradable, the organic wastes. I just underline this part because from 2011 to today, to a few months ago, this part have a very, very difficult progress, because a lot of laws sometimes eliminated this part from the definition of biomass, and sometimes reintroduced this biomass. It's very complicated history, but these residues, that in my opinion, residues from public and private parks and gardens, I repeat, in my opinion, there is no reason to consider these residues waste. In my opinion, is a biomass like a residue from forestry. Sometimes it's the same. You can have branches from a tree from a forest, and you can have a branch from a tree in a park, in a public park. What's the difference? For the Italian law, there is a difference, a very important difference, and I'm talking about this because the project that Biomass Research Center worked some days ago with the municipality of Rome was a project to collect these residues and use it for energy production, and followed this evolution of the law, and actually these biomass are considered wastes. Okay, it's a particular case, but that show how it's complicated, it's difficult to decide, to establish, decide if a source is a biomass or it's a waste, and sometimes it's a contradiction also for the same source. Okay. Probably we will better understand this definition and also these problems with when we will have a look to biomass projects, real biomass projects. Okay. Other definition, just to complete the picture of the definition, we will talk about bioliquids. So liquid biofuels, which are liquid biofuels for energy purposes, different from transport sector. Okay, so we talk about bioliquids fuels when we talk about, for example, electricity or heat production. We will talk about biofuels, gaseous or liquid, when we are considering transport sector. So bioliquid fuels and biofuels are different for our law. And then biomethane is methane, CH4, the composition of methane obtained from biomass and not from a fossil fuel source or not a renewable source. Okay. I just to remind you this law that was integrated a million times during this period, but this is our environmental unique collection of laws. I can see in this way the environmental collection of laws in Italy from 2006, but from 2006 to 2022, this law was modified a million times. So it's very difficult to have an updated book updated with all the modification during these years, but this is our collection of law that we have to follow when we speak about biomass, but not only, of course. Another input to biomass definition is also the where biomass came from. And so, for example, I underlined biomass from agricultural residues or forestry residues, which are the two main sectors where we have biomass available. And sorry, I don't know if I'm so clear in English, because it's very difficult to have an organic speech with this very complicated topic. But so biomass on one side and wastes on another side. We just say that they follow two separate laws, or many laws, of course. But there is a point of contact between biomass and waste, and this contact is subproduct. This word, this term, subproduct. What does it mean? It means, as I said before, that a source, a biomass source, could be considered a biomass or a waste. Okay, and it depends if I can use it like a subproduct. Okay, so please stop me and ask me if it's not clear, because otherwise you could find some application in your research, in your activities, and you are not so sure if you are considering biomass or waste. And it's very important, because okay, if you have a biomass that respect the biomass definition, you are quite sure you are considering it like a biomass. But it depends also if what do you do with this biomass? Because if you have a residue from your garden, grass, you cut your grass in your garden, and what are you planning to do with this grass? Because if you want to not use anymore this grass, for you is a waste, and you move toward waste. Side. But if you consider it as a subproduct, it means that you can reuse this biomass to, for example, produce energy or produce a biofuel. You can consider it as a biomass. Okay? Can you hear me? Because I have a message of not so good quality of connection.
I can hear you very well.
I can too.
Okay. Thank you. So is this clear for you?
Yes.
You can see also here, I don't read, of course, because you have all the material available in the registration. I can also share you the PowerPoints or PDF of the presentations. So I don't read, but it's important to see here what's the difference between subproduct and so biomass and waste. So if you have this source as a residues of a primary production pathway, you could consider it as a subproduct. I give you an example. When you produce, for example, olive oil, we just introduced this activity. One of you is working in this activity. If you produce olive oil, you have a residue, which is the residues from milling. Okay, this is a possible subproduct, but you have to use this source for another project, for another product. For example, you can use it for energy production from anaerobic digesting. You don't have to make treatment to transform this product, because otherwise it's not considered as a product. And of course, it's a legal use of the resource. So this is the line, the line that make you moves between biomass and waste, the subproduct definition. Okay, so there are some sources that are biomass. Okay, the agricultural residues are biomass. The pruning from olive trees are biomass, and this is clear. But for example, the pruning from public parks are not biomass, and so they are a waste. They are a waste, or I have to demonstrate that I can transform this waste into a subproduct, and so I can consider it like a biomass. Okay, this is a very important difference, because you have to demonstrate and have also an authorization to use this kind of source. Okay, and here you can see the difference. So residues from olive, yes, you can see the same example I made you now. This is, of course, as a product, but it's a biomass, because it's in the definition of biomass. This is a pine in a street. If you have to cut it, or just to cut some branches, some pruning, it's considered an urban waste. Okay, and you have eventually you have to demonstrate that you recover this waste, and you use it like as a product for a bioenergy pathway. Okay, so it's very, very important. And if you want to have a more look, you can also read the law bibliography I have reported into this slide. And here some use of subproducts. And just I don't need to read anymore any other part, but this, for example, a useful conversion of a subproduct is, for example, in agricultural activities for the production of energy, heat, or biogas, but only in agriculture farms. Okay, so it creates a lot of particular cases. Okay, if we agree with these definitions and with this important information I shown you, we can starting to classify and to define what is considered a biomass. And here you can see first classification of biomass depending on the sector. You can see the forestry sector, the industrial sector. Probably is better to say agro-industrial residues. This is the residues from olive milling. Okay, so it's a possible feedstock for some kind of bioenergy processes. Agricultural sector, and I'm speaking about agricultural residues, okay, only residues, so they just are a subproduct of a food crop. We will better say this in the next slides. Zootechnical sector, and so the manure coming from this brewery, from cow, chickens, horses, pigs, and so on, and energy crops. Last sector, and here we open another very large argument of discussion, because energy crops means cultivate this kind of non-food crops into food fields, into food fields, and so I repeat, we open a lot of considerations we can add, and this is the reason why this sector is not so developed in Europe or also all over the world. Energy crops means competition with food agriculture. Energy crops means huge use of water and also other products. Energy crops means that we can influence the market prices of food products. Energy crops means that sometimes the same crop could be used for food purposes and for energy purposes. So you see a lot of elements that could be introduced in this sector. This is the reason why, apart from particular cases, and we'll have time to show what are these particular cases. Apart from particular cases, energy crops is not the sustainable way to obtain biomass, but the sustainable way to produce feedstock and biomass for bioenergy and bioproducts purposes is one of or maybe all these 4 other sectors: forestry, agro-industry, agriculture, and zootechnical. Okay, but we have some exception, and we will show. I will show you these particular cases. Another way to classify biomass is following 3 pathways, and so you can see energy crops is the one pathway with all the limitation I've shown you. Biomass residues in general, and so we are speaking about residues from agriculture and from forestry, and agro-industry and zootechnical residues. This classification is important because, of course, for example, biomass residues can follow some specific energy pathway, and the same is for agro-industry and zootechnical residues that follows other energy pathways. For example, you can just imagine that this kind of residues are usable. For example, the best use is for example, anaerobic digestion for biogas and biomethane production, because the composition of this biomass is good for this kind of biological process. Or maybe a kind of other biological processes. Biomass residues are better for other processes, of course, thermochemical processes, and we will speak about all these terms, but I just try to show you where we have to go, and so this is another possible classification. Here you can see what does it mean, the energy crop sector, and you can see some kinds of energy crops. You can see the so-called short rotation forestry, so trees that grow in very slow time for, of course, slow time for this kind of application. Poplar, salix, robinia, they grow in 2-3 years, which is a very low period to grow. Oil crops, sunflowers, soybean, jatropha, so there are all crops that produce seeds, and from these seeds you can mill to produce vegetable oil, and you can see in some cases you have the same energy crops that we usually cultivate for food production. The same for these alcohol crops, so cereals, maize, sorghum, grain, and so on. And this the same I've just said. The same crop could be used for energy purposes and for food purposes, and it's a very complicated situation. And also some grass crops, sorghum, miscanthus, arundodonax, kenaf, and cardoon, for example, which is a mix between grass and short rotation forestry. These crops don't go in competition with agriculture, with the food products, but of course goes in competition with the fields, the the space you need to cultivate this biomass, which is the same you use for agriculture. So the only way to don't create competition between energy crops and traditional agriculture is do not use food crops and do not use food agriculture fields. So if you are able to avoid these two situations, you can use energy crops. And there are some examples I will show you in a while. Biomass residues, agricultural residues, so every kind of straw from cereals, from every typology of cereal. This is a residue. Sorry. You usually don't use straw apart from some particular use in brewery, in some application. You don't use straw. You don't use residues from wine, from olive, from fruit trees. So when you have to maintain this cultivation, you obtain some prunings, okay, that you can use for energy purposes. Forestry residues, and so you usually for the wood industry you need the large part of the tree, while branches, leaves, and so on are considered residues not useful for this application. You can recover these residues for energy purposes. So this is the most important word of biomass sources, because you can have some raw material from biomass which is not used for other purposes, okay? And the same for agro industries residues and zootechnical residues. For example, the residues from wine production. This is one. The residues from olive oil milling. The residues from rice. From rice production. The residues from milk production, and I could continue for a lot of time. And also zootechnical residues, so the residues from pigs, cows, chicken, and so on. Now a very quick overview of this typology of biomass. Any question? So I have a breath. Simona, would you try to repeat your question?
Okay.
If you have,
okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
I think I can hear you well now.
Great. My question was regarding the kind of biomass. For example, in this classification, these last classifications you show us, I didn't see the waste, urban waste, the bio part of the urban waste.
Mm-hmm.
Biological part of the urban waste.
Okay,
it's not considered. I wonder why. Just this was my question.
Okay, I try to answer you. Also showing. Sorry. I don't know if I am able to find the definition. So the reason is that, as I said to you, we have the two great categories, biomass and waste. I told you that, okay, for example, this slide or this one. Yes, here you can see the source you are asking about. This is the organic fraction of urban waste. The organic fraction of urban waste is considered a biomass, and this is the reason you have seen this during my explanation of biomass use. Then I try to consider wholly biomass in a very strict sense. So we will talk about these sectors, but of course, also the organic fraction of urban waste is considered a biomass. Okay, so it's not present here because in general we talk about biomass in a very strict sense. But of course, you can consider also the organic fraction of residues like a biomass. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just another curiosity. The technology for biomass plants is mature or not? I mean, is it possible, according to you, to use biodigesters, for example, in a city, or there are some problems that make this solution not applicable or not good to apply to applicate?
Okay, but you are asking me if is possible for the law, or if it's possible in general, in my opinion, because it's
both for the law and for the people perception. I mean.
Okay, you just individuated my question. Of course, you can. There is a law that give you a lot of parameters to follow to decide where the biogas plant must be realized. And so my answer is that in general you can realize the biomass plant in every place allowed by the law. And so you can also build a plant near a town, near a city. If you follow the request from law, you can realize it. I think that the most difficult aspect is to make it acceptable from the people that lives near the new plant, near the possible new plant. I hope I'm understanding your question, because this introduced the famous NIMBY syndrome. So not in my backyard. So I think that in these lessons we will all agree with the importance of biomass, bioenergy plants, biorefineries plants, and so on. But the problem is that if I say you that I will build a biorefinery close to your house, I think you can have a different reaction This is the NIMBY effect. So not in my backyard. So speak about renewable energies. The renewable energies are beautiful, but far away from my backyard. Okay. So I hope I understood your question and I answered your question.
Yes, that's right. In fact, in Rome, the new measure want to build some biodigestors, big biodigester plants, and the people is not happy about this. That's why I'm asking if there is a if we say the truth if we say that the technology is mature, that the smell will not disturb the people because it will be filtered somehow. I don't know. This was my question.
Yes, I've understood your question. Of course, these plants must respect a lot of emission limits in every sector, on air, on land, on water. You have to respect a lot of limits. The problem is that every human activity produce some kind of pollutants. Okay, so and so also biodigesters locally produce some pollutants in atmospheres mainly. So very low, but they produce some. So this is the problem. But in my lessons, I teach from guys from guys from school to university or more PhD like this or a master and so on. And I say the same things. Every human activities produce some kind of impacts in our environment, and so what's the solution? To stop every activity or to try to give a sort of sustainability to every process? And this is the answer. So if you design and realize a biodigester with good sustainability criteria, you should accept it, even if locally could produce some environmental pollutants, because it's not possible to produce zero impact. Okay, so this is the problem, and I also understand that when you realize a plant, you produce some problems to local people, but it's the same when you realize an industry in somewhere in Italy or in the world, when you realize an industrial and energy infrastructure, when you realize a refinery near the cities, things about I don't know, some places in Sicilia or Taranto. Everywhere you create an infrastructure, you produce some kinds of pollutants, and only I can say only this, that you have to realize this kind of plants with sustainable criteria, but you can't reduce to zero the emissions of every plant. Okay, I well know the problems of social acceptance of plants. I'm working to these topics since from 20 years. So I ever had problem with social acceptance of every kind of plant. Also the most sustainable plant, yes, had problem with people that are not happy about having a plant near their houses, their children houses, and so on. So I know very well this problem.
Is it correct? Am I wrong if I say that in other big European capitals in the Northern Europe, for example, these kind of plants are already used into the town, into the city?
Of course,
producing the energy and warm water.
They have, but not biodigesters. They have incinerator. I don't know if is correct the term. They have incinerator inside the city. Okay,
yes,
and yes, it's a question of accept a compromise between sustainable energy production and some kind of disadvantages you would have living near the plant, because we have to be honest and say that you have some problems if you live. But I'm not talking only about health problem, okay? I'm talking also about noise problem or traffic, heavy traffic for trucks. Okay, also this kind of problems, but okay, it's the same problem that I don't know, people that lives near the industrial quarter in Milan or in Rome have, but you can't close everything, or maybe you can also close everything, but then we should have other kind of problems.
I see. Maybe in a big city, a possible attempt of solution could be the new energetic communities, renewable communities, energetic communities. For example, I could imagine a little biodigestive plant that that is used to a community, and also for the electric alimentation of the cars, for example. I don't know, something like this. For example, this
Yes,
may be a little plant can be acceptable if people sees that it's not so dramatic as they think. For example, no, in the
of course. If you reduce the size of this plant and you create local plant, and you said, you said energy communities, which is a definition that we have also in the new PNRR. Of course, you can try to make this plant more acceptable from people. Yes, okay. I have still some doubts, because I think it's easier to make, for example, acceptable a photovoltaic systems into a field that for me is not acceptable, because you are using agricultural fields to realize photovoltaic plants, but it's more acceptable than a small biodigester that I don't know what they think that can produce with pollutants. So in this sector, in the bioenergy sector, the problems of social acceptance is higher than other plants, but of course a reduction of the size of the plant would be a good solution.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you too, because you make me have some breath during the lesson, because to speak 4 hours in English is not so easy. Okay. if there are not any other questions, we can proceed with this typology explanation. Okay, energy crops. I just introduced the kind of energy crops you could use for biochemical purposes. So lignocellulosic biomass from trees or grass plants, oil crops and sugar crops. Okay, so I go very quick when we talk about these typologies, because we will meet also many examples during the lessons. So I would like only to underline some energy crops that we can consider sustainable. Okay, for example, you can see cardoon. So I said previously, when we can consider the sustainable and energy crop, when we don't, when this biomass is not for food or feed, mainly for food production, and don't use agricultural land. And so one of the most promising solution is cardoon, or also miscanthum, but cardoon is very interesting because is of course not a food crop, and we can cultivate it into not agriculture field. This plant grows up in fields not useful for agriculture. We can use, for example, also industrial, dismitted industrial areas, or fields that in general are not used for agriculture, and is a dry crops. What does it mean? That don't need the water to grow. Rainfall are sufficient to make this plant grow up. So it's the exception I told you. There are some cultivar, some energy crops that can be cultivated in not agriculture field and not used for food production. Cardoon is an example, and I will show you better in a project, because we worked in a project for the realization of a biorefinery in Sardinia, near Porto Torres, which is fed by cardoon. So there is the whole energy biorefinery pathway from the cultivation to the final bioproducts production. And you from cardoon you obtain a lignocellulosic biomass, because it's a plant 3 meters tall, and so you can collect the biomass part, and the flower, the upper part of the plant, the flower, is full of seeds that you can mill and obtain vegetable oil, not for food application, but for the production of some biochemicals, like, for example, biopesticide. So some kind of not pesticide, biodegradable, or for example biolubricant, or also bioplastics. So this is the possibility from oil. So you can have a lignocellulosic biomass for energy purposes or other kind of purposes, and also cardon oil for biochemicals production. I go quickly towards other typologies of biomass. We are still in energy crops, sorghum, miscanthus, cardun. I created a table for each kind of biomass. Some energy crops like trees, poplar, and so on, and then agricultural residues. Some consideration we can apply to this kind of biomass. Okay, they are a subproduct. They are a residues from agriculture or forestry, and this is just known information. So you can recover. You can recover these subproducts in a circular economy idea. Okay, and this is the first observation. On the other side, it's very expensive to collect this biomass because they are very distributed into the fields. If you think about prunings from grapes, for example, and you have to collect them from all the fields, and so it's very expensive. So you have to plan with very high attention the pathway. Otherwise, you collect a biomass that have a low price, and you spend all the gains to collect and transport this biomass. So it's very it requires very high attention in the design of the pathway. Okay, we usually define this kind of biomass low density energy content. So they have a low energy content distributed in a very large space, and so you have to spend a lot of money and a lot of energy to collect. But of course, you should prefer this biomass because the advantage is that you have a subproduct that start with the zero price. So this is a negative price because it's a cost to treat it like a waste. So you have a negative price when you start, but you have to be careful to don't spend too much during the pathway. This is an important consideration. So we have always positive and negative aspect to consider in every situation. And here the list of possible residues from agriculture, forestry. I put this category, even if during the years it changed the collocation, but you can know that you can treat these residues like subproducts in some application. And then all the possible residues from agriculture and forestry. I go very fast. Straw, you can see some bales you can have like straw, and you have a large availability of straw only a little part has some uses in agriculture and in zootechnical application. 90%, approximately 90% of straws are unused, and you can recover for energy purposes. So grain, orzum, and also rice, maize, all the cereals you can use. You can use also vineyard prunings. These are some bales collected from a project I developed in the past for a wine company. We have realized that the whole pathway, energy pathway, from vineyard pruning to energy production in the company. If I think we will have time to have a look to this project, a research project, because it was my thesis argument a lot of years ago. Prunings from olive trees. Of course, prunings for every fruit tree. Apple, pear, peach, orange, lemons, all this cultivation can give us biomass residues to use for bioenergy purposes. Almond and so on, I can continue. Also, for example, the sunflower cultivation have some residues. So we can use sunflower seeds for food purposes, but we can use all the other parts of the plant. You use only the head of the sunflower to produce food. We can use all the other part of the plant to produce bioenergy and biochemicals. Agro-industry residues and zootechnical residues, the third category we mentioned, and here a list of possible residues from agro-industry. Yes, the residue from olive milling, and you can see the biomass in the picture. The residues from grapes milling, because you have to mill grapes to collect the part that you then ferment into wine. But you have a lot of residues, and you can see here the residues of grapes that you can use for energy purposes. For example, all the residues from almonds and other dry fruit production. This is the cover of rice that you can use for energy purposes. The beer production has some residues you can use, also milk production and so on. So you have a huge quantity of sectors, agro-industry sectors, to recover biomass to start bioenergy, biofuels, biochemical pathways. And of course, also the residues from brewery, from zootechnical, yes, brewery. Just to probably conclude this lesson, because we are going toward the end of this lesson. You have seen how many biomass are available for the biorefinery concept, because we have to think about all the biorefinery possibilities. And you have you can have a branch from a tree. You can have yes, the residues from olive oil. You can have the residues from zootechnical feed. So you have a lot of shapes you can have biomass. And so the first step is to transform, to convert biomass into a useful biofuel. Because if you want to feed a biomass boiler, you can't use a branch, you can't use a bale. You have seen, you can't use this shape of biomass. You need a biofuels. You need a biofuel. So a uniform shape that the machine, the system, the energy system, the energy conversion system must could use, not must, could use. And so the very important step is move from biomass to biofuels. Okay, this is a very important step before starting to speak about bioenergy processes, because bioenergy processes start with biofuels. So you have to consider this step from biomass, every kind of biomass you have seen, to biofuels. And we can speak about solid biofuels, for examples, that there are probably the most used, actually the most used biofuels. Wood is a biofuel, sorry, because you start from a tree, but you have to transform it to a biofuel usable into our fireplace, for example. Okay, and so you have to have a piece of wood of 20-30 centimeters. You can use into your fireplace, or also into your wood boiler, because there are also wood boiler that produce thermal energy for our heating system in some houses. For example, you can use wood chips, which are pieces of wood chips that you can use into biomass boiler for energy production, for heat production, for electricity production, because the large typologies of cogeneration systems, I'm speaking about the systems that produce electricity and heat from biomass, use wood chips, which is this kind of biofuel. Okay, I don't spend time to speak about the size, the optimal size, the law that create categories in biofuels, because we don't have time to speak of everything about biomass. So I would move towards bioenergy pathways, but you have to know how to move from biomass to biofuels to bioenergy pathways. For example, also sawdust is a possible biofuel, usually sawdust, which is in Italian segatura from wood industries, could be used for the production of pellets. So from sawdust you press it and you produce pellet, which is very used into our pellet boilers for heating systems in houses. And so from sawdust you obtain pellet, and you can use pellet, which are some small cylinders of 2, 3, 4 centimeters length that can be used into the boiler or also stoves in our houses. You can use also briquettes, which are compressed cylinder, bigger than pellet. The briquettes have the size of wood used in a fireplace, so 20, 30 centimeters length, these cylinders. These are all solid biofuels. And this is the market of biofuels for heat production in Italy. We are talking about Italy. In the last years, you can see that a lot of the heat consumption in Italy comes from wood for our fireplaces, but also pellet and also wood chips for heating, because wood chips is another very important biofuels that we will find in a lot of applications in that we will see in the next lessons. Sorry. Okay. I hope you are seeing the presentation, even if it's not in the modality presentation modality. Did you see all the slides?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, we see it.
Yes, I saw that I was not in presentation model. So some other information about the prices of in the market of wood, which is, I just said it's very used in our buildings. Okay, there is also the possibility to use fireplaces, I cammini di casa, fireplaces, for not only for eating if you are near the fireplace, but also for integrating the heating in all your house. So you can use the fireplaces fed by wood to heat water for your heating system. Okay, and so it's an important sector. Some information about prices changes, but it's not so important. Just to note that pellet, I think you can also buy pellet into a supermarket, so you know the price. If you have, of course, if you have a fireplace or a boiler, you know the price of pellet. Price of pellet is very high. Wood chips has a very lower price. So pellet is good for your houses because it's a very energy biofuel. It has a very high content. It's very comfortable to use it into houses. But if you move towards industrial applications, you have to use wood chips, which have a very lower cost compared to pellet. So pellet is good for our boilers in our houses. When you move towards industrial or high plants, the market is only wood chips, and so is the reason it's so important, this biofuel. And of course, pellet as a sort of, not a sort, as a way to certificate the quality of pellet, N plus, you can see N plus, and you can see the prices that are very high if you consider the price in for energy content. You can see that here we have prices between 20 and 30 per megawatt hour. Here we are the double price in terms of energy content, and much higher if we consider the weight of the biofuel. So the difference is the comfortable way of buying and manage pellet, but if you move to bigger plant, you have to use wood chips to have more economical advantages for this use. And here just to, and I think we can also stop with, sorry, non volevo stoppare, I didn't want to stop, but I lost, okay, sorry. Can you see again the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I want to say that we can stop with the lesson with this slide, but I just would like to make some consideration. Here you can see the price of fossil fuel for heating compared to biofuels. Okay, and of course you can see that of course diesel for heating system is still used in a lot of houses, but as a very high price, and so it's the higher price. We should compare methane, natural gas, which is the blue line, which is this price during the last years, the last 5-6 years that are reported here, and then of course biofuels cost. Pellet, we just said that it's expensive biofuel, but of course has a lower cost compared to natural gas. Not so lower, but a lower cost compared to natural gas. Wood stay here and has a lower cost compared also to pellet, and wood chips. Wood chips has the lowest cost for energy production. It's approximately 50%, maybe also less than pellet or natural gas costs. And this is the reason why in many applications wood chips are a less expensive way to produce heat. Of course, these considerations are oriented to big plants, industrial plants, but also if you should have the possibility to install, to substitute a gas natural boiler with a wood chips boiler, you will have a very important reduction of your costs for heat. For heating your house, and so this is the reason why some, not so many, but some houses are fed by biofuels plants. And I don't know, I hope we will see some example of projects that substituted fossil fuel boiler with biofuels boiler. Okay.